I understand what does it mean to be the last speaker, especially after a long day of working and especially before dinner. So I will try to be concise in my explanation. As Alicia mentioned before, I work for Different and Equal, which is an NGO that works in Albania since 2004, assisting victims of trafficking. Is one of the 4 NGOs that works in Albania with shelter communities, and also we have a lot of collaboration with the religious institution, especially Mary Ward Loreto. Trafficking in Albania is a phenomenon that has begun after the fall of the communist regime, and from 1990 it is estimated a number of 2,030 victims of trafficking in Albania, which is not expected in fact to be the real number, because as we know, trafficking is a hidden crime, and usually victims of trafficking are not being identified. And one of the challenges of our work, even in Albania, is to correctly identify victims of trafficking. However, each year in Albania there are around 100 victims of trafficking identified and assisted. I will go more specific to my work. I work in a mobile team in Tirana, which try to identify and help victims of trafficking in their community. The mobile team is composed by me and another social worker who works in hotspot areas of Tirana, let's say, regarding exploitation of trafficking. Usually are areas with a high rate of unemployment and also a high poverty. First of all, we try to identify some of the actors that can collaborate with us. For example, social workers from NGOs that works with vulnerable people, or teachers and school psychologists in the schools, or members of religious communities and also child protection units. Together with our collaborators in the communities, we try to identify dysfunctional families and also potential victims of trafficking, and we try to, let's say, to contact them and to offer our help. When someone is identified as a potential victims of trafficking, we try to offer our help and to also to refer to the services which are in Albania. Unfortunately, in some cases, the victim declined the help or refused the help, but we still stay in contact with their situation, and we still try to contact them in order to see if later they can accept our help. In some cases, there are even difficult situations. For example, when the victim is under the trafficker control, or when the trafficker and the victim are near. For example, in some cases, when we were talking to the victim, the trafficker came near to us to listen to what we were talking, and immediately we shift the conversation to another topic in order to not be, let's say, in order to not be explored to other risks. Besides identification, we also try to do to increase awareness in those communities, which are usually poor communities in Albania. We choose usually people from the community, which are trusted in the community, and we train them first, and then they can replicate to their communities. We use some materials, very useful materials, like this, for example, which is a fotonovela which showed let's say, a story of a girl trafficked. The real story of a girl trafficked. from our work in the community and also from the experience of the organization, we can design a profile of the typical victims of trafficking in Albania. One of the main causes, let's say, of trafficking and exploitation in Albania are dysfunctional families, families which face issues of violence, of alcohol dependence of their parents, of even in some cases incest, or not stable relationships, and marriage and divorce between parents many times. Also, the age of victims of trafficking usually are minors, or even when they are not minors, the process of exploitation and trafficking began when they were minors. And as far as we have seen, the earlier it begins, the process of exploitation, the more difficult is even the assistance process later. So that's why identification is very important in terms of even assistance and reintegration later. Education. Most of the victims of trafficking have very little education or don't have at all any education. Sorry. Employment. Lack of employment is highly associated with the situation of trafficking in Albania, and also there are some kind of employments that are highly associated with trafficking. For example, in some cases, there are girls who are recruited by nightclubs. They first work as waitress or they first work as a belly dancer, but then after they are exploited for sexual purposes. Even ethnicity and region, it's an important factor, let's say, in Albania. Like Olivia mentioned before, Roma and Egyptian communities are in great risk of trafficking because of the social exclusion and because of discrimination in our society. Some recommendation in order to conclude even my presentation. It is very important to identify dysfunctional families in the communities and to assist them before, let's say, there are problems later of exploitation or trafficking. Also, it's very important to increase the know-how of professionals who work with vulnerable groups and to increase their knowledge about trafficking and exploitation in order even to ensure a sustainability in that community. It's also important to map the areas where trafficking is frequent and also identify the groups that are in higher risk of exploitation and trafficking, like, for example, Roma and Egyptian community in Albania. Identify ways and methods of recruitment and also raise awareness in youth and vulnerable groups regarding the methods of recruitment in order for them even to be protected from possible, let's say, recruitment of traffickers. And also it's very important a good coordination between social services, police and education system in order to address the work with victims of trafficking. Thank you. Thank you for your attention.